Hi, this is Liqian Ren, Director of Modern Alpha WisdomTree ETFs. Welcome to China of Tomorrow podcast series, where we navigate China, India, Japan, and the broader emerging markets with members of WisdomTree and other industry leaders.
Hi, this is Liqian. It's October 14th, 2024, Monday. With 2 or 3 weeks of roller coaster for China equity. Let's quickly review it, and then I'll talk about generally how I view China equity in the portfolio. First, September 24th, China's CSRC, which is the SEC equivalent, and then PBOC, which is like the Fed, and then the other Financial Administration Bureau, which is a regulator that regulates banks and insurance companies. So these are the top 3 financial regulators in China. Came up with a package. The package, the usual points were actually leaked, but the part that was not leaked and really started this whole market rally and then pull back was that the PBOC will start 2 liquidity funding measures. That first, insurance companies, they could put out collateral and then get government bonds and then use those bonds to sell on open market and buy stocks. The other liquidity measure is that companies can take on loans, and then all the major shareholders can take on loans and then use those for stock buyback. So these are 2 funding liquidities, which I understand, clearly it's something which China has never done before. So you can understood as a put. But where the PBOC is willing to interfere is not clear, and it's not a whatever moment. It is something which works for China. But I think in the midst of this and, all kinds of things, people interpret it as a whatever it takes moment. Stocks have a significant rally of, the index, many different indexes is up 20, 30, 40%. And China was for a week closed. The market was closed actually because of the National Week. So a lot of actions was in Hong Kong and then in the US. But as things, as time passes and people start to realizing that it's the physical support it will be coming, but it might be smaller. And then the second thing is it's also not a whatever moment for and I think for people who say this is a whatever moment, it's really don't have an understanding of how China as a commodity economy is different from there will never be a whatever moment in China. The party's goal is social stability, staying power. It's a full responsibility and full power kind of setup. So, and also it's a central and a local government always in the gaming kind of system setup. So considering all of these, first a couple baselines we need to put in place. One is that yes, this is a pivot. I mean, it's definitely much better than before. Before most policies were very behind the market. This one was actually ahead of the market. Secondly, you cannot be too optimistic and not too pessimistic on China. I think people who follow me on Twitter and who've been listening to this program probably got it. But sometimes I think when it comes in China, you have to realize, the stock market is something which the party looks, but it's never going to be a very top concern for the party. Now, this sounds negative, but it's not necessarily negative. It's much more neutral. But again, that's a baseline. The third thing is China will be a volatile market. So in terms of how much risk you want to take, I think unless you engage in macro trading and unless you believe you have a good macro trading ability, because a lot of China's policies got leaked out. So people who have some front view can make money, but a lot of people are not in the leak kind of environment. And I personally, even though I got a lot of these, on Twitter I actually tweeted an example of a pre-policy leak, where it gets it and where it doesn't get it. I see a lot of those as well, but I'm not a macro trader, so I'm not good as a macro trader. I know a lot of my analysis are good, but I think in terms of in China, if you are not a macro trader and you still want some in your portfolio, then the baseline is think about how much risk exposure you want, and then stick with it. I think that's still going to be a prudent strategy, and over long run, it will deliver a value. In the next week, just follow up after September 24th, this huge run up, and then on October 8th, the National Development and Reform Commission, which is a very important political body, by the way, NDRC, came out with a press conference scheduled in 10 o'clock in the morning. I live tweeted the event. It was a huge disappointment. I think partly it's not their fault. Partly is that the PBOC set the expectation so high, but they don't have people to come out, explain that, it's not a whatever moment. So the market was, at least outside China, was very, very positive. Even, if you tell people that, it's not a whatever, it's something they are working, they put on some policy, they believe it will work, and it will work to a degree. But still, I think a lot of trading was riding on the wave. By the time October 8th come along, that also happened to be the first day of the stock trading in China after a 7-day week off. So in the morning, because Chinese local market was trying to catch up this run up. So actually the first half an hour, pretty much all the stocks hit the 10% daily limit and then stopped the trading. But at 10 o'clock, when the press conference started, the sentiment really reversed. The market becomes more 4% market, because the NDRC director and subordinates literally came to the press conference with nothing. Now, obviously, NDRC doesn't have that kind of power to give much, but because people has been so positive on China, everybody thought they would deliver things that in reality, as an institution, NDRC really doesn't have that much to deliver. But even with that, they were worse than, even the expectation was that low, they were worse than bad. Because the way they're delivering it literally, has no specifics on how are they going to implement a lot of policies. Anyway, it was quite bad. And then the local market and then the market outside China started to turn very negative. And then by October 12th, a few days later, then the Ministry of Finance said it will have a press conference on October 12th, which is Friday night at the U.S. Eastern Time, and early Saturday morning. Even though Saturday the market is closed, but it was a working day due to the move around for the national holiday. From that press conference, the interesting thing is they didn't give much specific numbers, which was leaked. That in advance, as said, NDRC tried to set the expectations, which they were actually good. They were much better than NDRC the Ministry of Finance were much better than NDRC in setting expectations. They have somebody they know that have some credibility with the local market and outside market to come out and say, you know, what they're likely to coming out is not yet going to be specifics, because Ministry of Finance doesn't have a exact power to give specific numbers until the national People's Congress gave the go ahead. Now that is kind of true, but on the other hand, that is still a message of this huge bazooka kind of stimulus. Is not what China have in mind. What it does have in mind is really a couple of things. First, it wants to do something so that the local government have some money to go through the end of the year. As you see, the Chinese New Year is coming up in a couple months, and many local governments has no money. When they have no money, they go and do quite some terrible things, detain entrepreneurs from rich provinces, extract money, and then enforcing some of the tax law in a very strict way, almost to the point of over enforcing, and that's putting a very negative sentiment on private enterprises and private entrepreneurs. So the Ministry of Finance will come up with a little bit of money for them. It's also going to come up with a little bit of money for local government to buy up some extra inventory houses, stop building some low-income houses. Just buy the houses that's too much on the market, and then use those as low-income housing. So before, China was not that much willing to do it, even though this should be done. But now they finally admit they are going to do it. So the whole package, there are many different estimates, and we won't know exact numbers. I think from what I'm looking at, several brokerage estimates and economists estimates, I think it's about 1.5 to 2.1 trillion. Essentially, it's a speed up of using the extra money that left over on the central government balance sheet. They're going to push those money down to the local government as fast as possible. Next year, they are going to sell some more central government bonds and relieve a little bit of the local government pressure of their balance sheet. So that number is probably close to 3 trillion Chinese yuan. So it's a, $400-300 billion. It's not nothing. It's not huge. So outside, I joked a little bit on the Twitter that people outside China, after looking at the press conference, got disappointed because they are looking for specific numbers. They are looking for, much more specifics. While people inside China actually a little bit more positive, because the way China's not very good in communication to the market. It's not part of their day-to-day job. But I think from the languages, the package will not be small. So you can be a little bit positive that the physical package will come out, and actually probably slightly more than the pessimistic 1 trillion or just 2 trillion kind of number. It will be a little bit higher. So on the higher end of this year and next year, total 5 trillion, maybe 5.5 trillion. So that's one thing. So I think the Ministry of Finance presser, it was on target. They were able to set the expectation, and then the final results were not too different from the expectation. Obviously, nobody is fully happy, but you cannot satisfy everyone in the market. The interesting thing is, after Ministry of Finance presser, I personally had thought, it's probably done by the weekend. But then they have, another press conference coming out. It's from the market regulator. and together with Minister of Justice. And so this press conference, I think outside China or inside China didn't get much attention. I did live tweet it last night. It's a late Sunday night, early morning in China. It's a lot of structural problems. Essentially, China now is pivoting from a so-called crackdown on private enterprises into this serve the private enterprises mode. Now, you can joke, you can kind of make fun of it, but again, for people in the market, I think this part was generally good, except the press conference itself is quite boring. On the other hand, if they really do what they say at the press conference and do it well, and again, these are still subject to how we see. And on these, I'm slightly on the positive side that when China wants to do something, they generally do okay. The party's governance ability usually is underestimated by people outside China. So this press conference, short term, you wouldn't see much, but in the next 2 or 3 months, you will definitely see local entrepreneurs, they won't worry as much about being detained by the local government for extracting money. The tax bureau might be a little bit lenient. We'll still see in China. You can observe government's behavior is quite easy to observe whether the central government policies got into the lower government actual actions. So on that, I'll continue to tweet. I think generally my understanding of the local government is good. So I have when things slightly shift, I generally you can see from the headlines. So again, huge number of China headlines. If you're I think a lot of people are interested in China now purely because of the stock market. And I have to be honest, the China stock market is still going to be a high risk market. And, you still want to be able to have a consistent strategy, I think. So, think about how much risk you want to take. These kind of up 40%, down 30%, the kind of episodes can happen in China, and it can happen again in China. So I think in the U.S. election is going to bring significant volatility to China as well. Depends on who get elected. So again, thank you for listening to our podcast, and thank you for following me on Twitter. I try my best to bring some of my understanding of what's happening in China. And we always like, your feedback, and check us out on our website at wisdomtree.com. Thank you.